And here we go. It's my video reflection, and I'll take my glasses off because I know the light tends to reflect in very strange ways. First of all, I've just got to say that this assignment impacted me on a real deep level, in that I have an aversion to photographs and a real aversion to videos of myself. My first wife once told me that I had a face for radio, and I've always taken that to heart and done my best to focus on my voice and my written abilities to get a point across. So being asked to do anything in a video format was extremely challenging for me, not to mention a learning curve for a man who's on the wrong side of 40, pushing 50, trying to learn video technology. I'm sure this assignment was a breeze for some of my fellow more traditionally aged students. For me, it was not. It was difficult and a bit intimidating, to tell the truth. But here we are, and my goal is to reflect on the readings. And the main topic I'm going to choose is the idea of social justice, and why do people get the results they get? Where does success come from? I think in my presentation in class, where I outlined Malcolm Gladwell's book Outliers, I talked about my own core belief that success tends to be exogenous, that it comes from outside, not necessarily from within. I take it for granted that just about everybody works pretty hard for what they get. So yeah, you got to work hard to be successful, but what makes or breaks people, what gets you those great results, often tends to be something from outside your own hard work, skills, and ability. And I think that makes a huge difference in how we look at what success is and what it means. Right now, I think in a lot of America, if you talk to the average person, they would say that success is a measure of how hard you work, and that the amount of money you make is a measure of your virtue, and that poor people are poor because they made bad decisions, they made bad choices, and they just don't have the skill set to keep up with people that are more talented and more qualified. In my heart, I know that's the complete, utter wrong answer. In my heart, I know that I've seen good people get bad results. I've seen bad people get good results. I know that it's outside factors that really tend to matter, and I think that what I talked about in my presentation about the idea of how a small change early on in your life can make a huge difference later on. This idea of a compounding effect over time of some small exogenous chance event can have a huge impact. The example that I used in my presentation from Gladwell's book was the idea of Major League Baseball players who are predominantly born in the months of August and September. Why is that? It's because in America the cutoff for Little League is August 1st. So a kid born in August and September has to wait to play Little League, and they tend to be on average about 6 months older than their Little League playing peers. And that means that they're that much faster, that much stronger, they get that much more attention, they get that much more extra coaching. And those early initial exogenous advantages build up over time until they have a tremendous impact on the child's future down the road. You see that in Rothstein's paper on the achievement gap, when he talks about how just getting kids proper vision care early on can have a tremendous impact on them later on in their school careers. How for the want of a $5 pair of eyeglasses, that a kid might end up on a path that leads them to criminal life, to despair, to poverty. Whereas if they do get those eyeglasses, then they might end up becoming an A student. They might end up becoming a successful person that holds down a steady job and contributes to society. So again, all for the want of a nail. The kingdom might be lost, as the old legend goes. Another reading that I was very impressed by in this whole area of social justice was Ladson-Billings, or Billings-Ladson's, anyways, the paper on the education debt. And what I liked there was that she flipped the metaphor around. She challenged the conventional thinking of the achievement gap and all the connotations the gap carries with it, the idea that there is a gap we've got to bridge, and that if you're failing to meet the standards, then you are in the gap. There's just an onus of responsibility on the people in that gap to do better. But that gets all flipped around and transformed when you talk about an educational debt. How much more efficiently could society perform? How much how many more better outcomes would there be? How better could the world become if people got the education that they truly deserved and needed? And that, and by flipping the terminology around, I felt she really made that point strongly. I also enjoyed that she had some great examples from history in talking about the educational debt, where she discussed the idea of New Englanders in the 19th century having some of the best education in America. And that education was paid for by the profitable textile mills in that region. And those textile mills were profitable because they had access to cheap southern cotton. And that southern cotton was cheap because it was produced on the backs of slaves who were prohibited from education by law. Again, an example of an educational debt as opposed to an achievement gap. I think as I wrap all this together and try to get this in before my memory card limit expires, I would say that the big takeaway that I got from most of the social justice readings, it did reinforce my belief that there is a butterfly effect and that educators are incredibly well placed to take advantage of that effect. Let me just digress for a second about butterfly effect. That's the idea that some small happening, some small initial happening can build and build and build over time until it has a tremendous impact further on down the road. The example always given is a butterfly flaps their wings in Brazil, and a month later there's a typhoon in the South China Sea. I see the same thing with education and the same role for teachers, in that they can be that initial flap of the butterfly wing. They can be the person that gives an exogenous nudge to a student that can send them in a more positive direction and result in a more positive outcome. I see teachers having this awesome and amazing responsibility in that they can, to some extent, to some certain degree, move people from a path that is moving towards despair and self-denigration to a path that is more about personal responsibility and more about good educational outcomes. I see all that being possible at the level of the teacher. And again, I think that the readings didn't change the way I thought about social justice, but they certainly gave me much more food for thought and a better theoretical framework around which to build my core beliefs regarding this topic. Thank you, sir, for your time. I'm sorry you had to sit through this. I know I'm not a pretty man to look at for 3 or 4 minutes straight, but that concludes my ed508 reading reflection video. Thank you, and good day.